clarify their brands, and vision and alignment with senior leadership to the most critical needs. So I'll just say Mary is amazing. I worked with her from the EO standpoint as a coach, and I was thinking about this earlier today, and what she's really great at is improv. So she always says yes and I love that because you don't typically hear that from a coach. And so that is amazing. Thank you, Mary, for always yes anding. So next we have Bethany Newman. She is the founder and CEO of Statement. She was also she is our current EO past president. And Statement develops brands for clients that includes the Bobby Hotel, Union Station, Spotify, National Geographic, Atlanta Braves, Taylor Swift, Sweeten Cove, River North Development, among others. They're amazing. They do all of my work. And then finally, we have Alex Tolbert. Moved to Nashville in 2003 for school and started Bernard Health in 2006. Bernard is composed of a software business and a brokerage advisory business. Bernie Portal, its flagship software product, is a leading HRIS for small employers that currently has over 5,000 employer clients representing more than 250,000 employees. That's strong. And its brokerage business for small employers has locations in Nashville, Austin, and Indianapolis. So there is our panel today. We're going to just a little housekeeping. Please put Q&A in the chat, and we'll follow that as we go along. And we'll have time for Q&A right after the presentations. And then we'll break out into small groups for about 15 minutes at the end. Then we'll come back for a little reflection, and then we'll be done. All right. With that, I will hand it off to Mary.
Actually, we're going to hand it off to, I think our order is Alex, Bethany, and then Mary.
Oh, shit. Sorry. Yeah.
That's all good. All's well.
Rewind. Alex. That was not in my script. That was at the front.
So we're ready to go, and we're starting with Alex.
Alex, rock and roll.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I feel a little intimidated. I know we've all been through this. I'm going with the classic EO Gestalt approach here for my portion this morning. I'm going to talk about how we have been maintaining and growing our culture remotely, while also letting you know where we're heading with this, which is that we're going back to the office. And when we got together yesterday, Mary told me I was probably in the minority of business owners who felt that way. But that's the end in mind that we have. We've been doing fine with this. It's been going okay. There are some positives that I'll touch on. But we're ultimately going to be back in the office. So, I'll first talk about the underpinnings of our culture that we went into this remote environment with, what went right and wrong, and then those next steps. So if I had to name one thing that embodies the Bernard Health culture, it's the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It is a book that every new team member gets, and then their manager is responsible for, during their first 30 days, going through the book with them. Their quizzes, it's not something that can be easily skipped. I also personally train the whole company on it every 2 years. One of our guiding principles here you see on the right, related to our people. We know the work we do is important and we're passionate about it. Our team is strongest if we operate in an environment of mutual respect. This is something, mutual respect is something we talk about a lot. We really value transparency and openness. So we have transparency around salaries, for example, that people can see throughout the organization what everybody makes. We also have transparency in decision making. So big decisions.
Yep. Your screen is not sharing if you're thinking you're sharing the screen with us.
Good tip. Thank you, Marty.
Sure. There we go. Got it now.
Better now. So, I'm saying all this to say that I feel like we went into COVID and remote work with a very, very strong underpinning to our culture to maximize the likelihood of success. And there were some things that went right, like that transition to video check-ins was no problem. We've got a very technologically inclined. This is like our product development team. This isn't something we do with all of these people every day, but it's just kind of a recent picture I had. Even better than the moving to video for check-ins and stand-ups, we had HR pretty early on begin to assign 2 people randomly every week to get together, which led to people from different parts of the company getting to know each other who otherwise wouldn't have. So this was something that was really good. Some stuff that was kind of like went right, went wrong. This is one of my own like shelter-in-place buddy calls. Someone in the spirit of transparency and openness shared with me, I like working from home a lot better. I mean, I'm way more productive from the office, but I just like working from home better. And I mean, that kind of resonated with me too. I liked working from home better, but maybe more productive from the office. We also saw that in the numbers. Non-exempt means hourly workers. And our hourly workers in March through May of 2019, on average, worked 32 hours a week. It's our slowest time of year, and they work 32 hours a week. In 2020, during that same time period, same workload, they worked 45 hours a week. We had one person clocking 65 hours a week. This is not because there was more work, but it was because there was more ambiguity about when you could be clocked in or out. I put it as an example, like I'm going to be cleaning up my CRM while drinking a glass of wine and watching Netflix. Is that okay for me to be clocked in for that? So we began requiring approval to work more than 40 hours. We told everyone, hey, we're going to start having remote monitoring software so that if you say that you can't get your work done in more than 40 hours, then your manager has something to go on and coaching you on how to get your work done. This is just one example of something that went wrong. There are plenty of other examples where things would have been better had they been like they were before. So like I said, we're going back in that spirit of transparency and openness. We shared our decision-making around this following what's called the Retrigo method. We are taking it in stages. So our first reopening is an initial reopening. Once we're through phase 1, people can decide if they want to be a remote worker or a headquarter worker, an office worker. Once we came up with that as a tentative decision, we opened it up to the team to share on a Google spreadsheet like potential problems they saw with that decision, and also like how we might mitigate those potential problems. We also, I guess, very unique to us, we have a HR-focused YouTube show. And we talked about all this on the YouTube show. So our people, it's out there. Everybody knows what we're doing. No one can say they're surprised. Everyone knows that ultimately we're going back. Now, the end in mind is that we'll go back for at least 6 months, and we'll have a reset where we're all back like things were before. And at that point, with that reset, we'll decide, are there places where remote work can make sense? But we're going to give ourselves that reset so that we can make that decision that way rather than the default where we are now. So I will hand off to.
Great stuff, Alex. Thank you. Bethany, you're up.
Awesome. Okay.
Do you have a screen share, or are you just gonna?
I'm gonna screen share.
Okay.
Yeah. So for us, here we go. So we have a small creative agency. We're 15 employees, and culture is super important to those employees. And also, like when I recruit these, there we go. You're seeing it all, right?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So culture is really important to them as well as when I'm trying to recruit talent. And we're very process oriented. and adapt it, all of the tech platforms that we use to do work already. So it kind of enabled us to step into a good remote workflow to begin with. And I'll say, yeah, we had a little bit of hiccups, but for the most part, remote work has been extremely successful to us. So now we're in a situation where we'll be looking at what does a hybrid model start to look like when everyone feels safe to go back. So just prefacing with that. But a big piece for us with the culture is to make sure that we have real core values. And I know a lot of you, this is a big piece of setting up your business and reviewing it each year. And we actually help other businesses with it because it's important to have really authentic. Like you can't just say you're great and nice and then everybody's assholes on your customer service team, like what are you really about? So, it's really important. And that's what we did as far as like enlisting employees and people on your team to help formulate real ones that are true to your company and that you aspire to do well. And then when you finalize them, they don't just sit in a drawer somewhere. You're always communicating the why and the what they actually mean, and repeat. This was extremely important with remote work because they're not just the guidepost for you, how you run the company, but it's the guidepost for these employees to think about, am I doing well? How am I supposed to do this if I want to be a part of it? And why do I want to be a part of it? Like, so that some other person doesn't come in and yank me away. So it's those real core values that are the engine that fuel culture. And a big part also of that is as you grow and bring people on is to create that excitement for them, to welcome them in that like very deep, here's the core values and why we're so excited, in the same way that Alex does the book with his team, planting the seeds of the vision of the company so they buy in and aspire to it. And it leaves a culture imprint on them. And then you build in systems for that culture to grow and stay sticky, like the social hours and those sort of things that we've all had to rethink now that we're remote. Are you not seeing the next page, Robin?
Nope. We're seeing
Now?
the PDF. We're seeing the PDF.
Oh, but it's not going through the pages?
No.
Oh, lovely. Let's stop screen share. No, they're not super. Oh,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is fun.
Now we have white line. Yeah, there we go. No, that's just you again.
Hi.
Hello.
Start share.
Start share. It's the problem with multiple screens.
Oh yeah, it's because hold on. I'm unplugging my second monitor.
Okay.
That is probably confusing it.
Gives it a headache.
Sorry, guys. As you can tell, someone else on my team usually runs these.
That's always the best way to do it.
Okay.
Maybe just share the application instead of the screen.
Now I'm having sound issues. This is lovely.
Sweet.
I don't see the problem with working remotely. This is great. Sorry.
Such a giver, Mr. Jackson. Such a giver.
Have you tried restarting it yet, Bethany?
We could all just pretend we see the slides.
Yeah, we could pretend.
She's very vivid in her description. I can picture it.
I can picture it in my head. Yeah.
I have Bethany's slides. I'm gonna try to share them myself.
Sweet.
We could also just start reciting the words from the other night. Cupid, chocolate, rope.
Very nice, David. Well done.
Okay, do you see them now?
Yep.
And
Important real core values, instilling culture as you grow on board. Yeah.
I don't know why my
You got it.
laptop and multiple screen situation. So anyhow, as I was saying, you have to change these up as you are remote. Sorry, everybody. So one of the parts that we do is which I'm just going to fly through these, like our employee documents that keep telling them why they're there and what they're supposed to be doing and how they're doing it well. We sell a vision. We, tell them, they need to be collaborating and growing like we do. And then we go through and always talk about the why of our core values. And they have this also up when we're in person all over their work environments. And we also talk about it quite often when we do their reviews and the remote reviews. You can't just say steward wisely and not really explain the why behind it. And the constantly collaborate. Part of that is letting go of your stupid ego. You have to collaborate. But that's just a sort of snippet of how we do it to show you as an example. It's important, and this is how we get total evangelism of our culture. We tell them over and over, like, these are the things we're passionate about and why, and they're then become very passionate about it. Then we stepped into remote work, and we see people, but how do we have those water cooler conversations? We started to, realize that of all of our recurring meetings that we had in person, it was really important that we continued to do those virtually at the same rhythm, and even add some to make sure we're seeing each other. Your video cameras have to be on. You're having those check-ins every morning. Everybody's opening up. We started with talking about, it's not just straight like work talk, start with something interesting or positive each day. We gave them, and we continue to give them, tips for doing remote better. If anyone is ever sort of flailing a little bit as far as like keeping a good work area, keeping a regular schedule, trying to have some physical activity. Think about, how do you limit your distractions? Limit yourself to just like news drama. You can't consume all of that and be productive at work, and move around different locations throughout your day. Whether that be around your home or, in and out of coffee shops and things like that. So here's just a list of our different meetings that we do, and we added some. So we're really touching base with folks a lot. And they have to be available during normal business hours. So they're not just, clocking Netflix and drinking at nighttime, saying that they're doing some work. Like, it's important because our teammates are collaborative, that they're there unless they've said like, hey, I'm going to leave for a doctor's appointment. Like, you're expected to answer when somebody slacks you. Communicate. That was what was effective for us. What we found was productivity for us remained super high, even more so in some cases. So they were getting their work done faster. They were clocking more billable time. And they were happy about it, that they were being effective. Like previously, when we had people asked to go remote, we realized it was because it was just lazy losers that wanted to check out and focus on like their personal priorities, and their output suffered. But because it was like, we're all on the same page and this is what we're doing, we all showed that productivity could stay up super high. And a funny other positive thing was we feel even more connected. Like, we're having more one-on-one syncs than we ever did. We're checking in during the mornings and throughout the day a whole lot more. Little sidebars, we had 2 employees that moved to other states to be with family, which we honored, and they're still productive. It's a little bit more of a tax headache because then you got to have your CPAs do all of that. And we had our very first out-of-state intern that was super successful because she maintained the communication rhythms. And now that she's going to graduate this summer, I'm looking at hiring her. Another piece was we had all of our team members get involved with contributing to our blog and our socials more, which for me, for business development, I was thinking more content marketing. But the positive burn off of that was that they felt like they had even more of a voice and more of an ownership in this company, and felt super engaged, so that someone can't just come in and snip them up. We did start to realize that one-on-one check-ins was like, how are you doing? Like, how's your life doing? How's work doing? Became important, as a couple folks maybe looked a little worn. And we had a new employee that began 2 weeks before we went remote. She was quiet and reserved, but doing her work well. And when she had her 90-day review, it was very surface level. And when we pressed her, like all this crazy shit came out that she was internalizing. 3 other like team members debunked it all. Like it became really obvious that she wasn't a culture fit. She wasn't hitting our core values, and she couldn't be a part of our company. So that's when I was like, okay, I can't table reviews. The reviews are super important with everyone remote, and more frequently, maybe if you are doing like yearly reviews, I would recommend quarterly, because in a remote environment, people can get sideways much, much quicker and internalize stuff and have this whole thing going on that you have no idea is happening. So, really now we're looking at how can I give people the ability to work hybrid some days from home, still being super productive and be in other days. But we have sort of that challenge of, if they're collaborating with others, how do we sync that up without pulling out delivery timelines to clients? Because our clients still expect their stuff when they expect their stuff. So, it can't be like, well, we can't get together on this because, he's not going to be back in the office for 2 days. Like, so that's our next big piece to try to figure out. But that's it. That's what I got.
Awesome. Great stuff, Bethany. Thank you very much. And we'll pass it on to Mary. And stop sharing your screen. And where is Mary?
Where is my stop screen share Zoom? Windows.
Mary, you're on mute. I see you talking, but.
Mary.
Thanks.
There she is.
There we go. We're tight on time, so I'm going to go fast. And I think what's most important is to just sort of name from a trend standpoint some of the things that you've heard from both Alex and Bethany. And I think perhaps the most important thing for us to remember right now is that we're at a pretty unique point in which, if you're an entrepreneur, you have the opportunity right now to really reconsider what your workplace looks like. Alex has decided to go back 100%. I shared with him in my unscientific survey of all the clients that I'm working with, 100% of those clients are committed to not going back 100%. Many people are settling in a hybrid. And so as we sort of figure this out, I think that it's really important for us to remember as CEOs that as we are going to remote environments, COVID sort of ups the ante on this, but working in a remote environment creates some unique needs from the CEO. And mostly what it is for you to promote that culture that both Bethany and Alex have talked about, that reduces uncertainty and creates real connection with people. And so I'm going to give you just 3 ideas on this morning that are pretty easy to put into play, but I'm going to start by sharing this with you. Your employees right now are operating in a world in which they are asking these 2 questions of themselves over and over and over again. Because of working remotely, because of COVID, because of a combination of those 2 things, what they are asking is, are we going to be okay as an organization? And am I doing enough as an employee? And as CEOs, it's our job to sort of set the culture that allows them to answer those questions. So the first intervention that I want you guys to think about is they want to hear from you more. However much you've been talking to your team, I'm going to encourage you to take that up a notch. And they want to hear specifically from you about 3 things that helps them to answer those questions. The first one is they want to hear about successes and progress right now, because that makes them feel like we're going to be okay. The second thing that they want to understand is what is actually most important in the company right now. And I am encouraging CEOs to very, 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 very much shift to the idea of talking in outcomes, not activity. There's a weird thing in remote where we talk about something we want to do, and people, as Bethany said, can get a little rogue, go off the ranch, go do something that's not valuable. Where we're super clear on our outcomes, they tend to do better in that mode. And also, we want to be talking to them about what to be thinking about next. And this helps them to stay connected and strategic and to ask the right questions of their leaders. I will share with you that I have 2 CEOs that went to a very, very, very committed process of sharing on Fridays the week in review. The week in review of how things went, what was awesome, what was a little less awesome, and most importantly, sort of how the outcomes are going. This created a glue for people to be able to, 1, see themselves in the work, but also to start getting this organic alignment back in terms of what should I be thinking about. In remote and uncertainty, that role falls to us as senior leaders. The second intervention that needs to happen as you go to remote is you really have to think about what collaboration really is and how it works when you're not in the same room. Most companies do what I like to call really passive collaboration, where our idea of working on things is we pile a bunch of people in a room. Some of them are critical, some of them are nice to have, a few of them are usually extraneous, but we share a bunch of stuff and then everybody's all cut up and we go out and we do that. What we're finding in remote environments is you can get much better collaboration if you really take the time to understand who should be in that smaller conversation and how do we communicate that out to other people. So often when we talk about collaboration, we're actually talking about, again, if everybody's in the room, we don't have to communicate. If you do it as a one-step, two-step, we're finding that we actually get better results. I have another client, and this is a pretty big organization, and they used to do the thing, they would pile everybody in the room together. This is a pretty big communications company. They have gone to saying 3 or 4 people come together and figure out how to move the work forward. And a significant part of that work is to say, who do we need to tell and what do we need to tell them? All of a sudden, a lot of their people are in a lot less meetings, and the meetings that they're in are much more valuable. And I will tell you why that is. There is a pretty good rule of thumb on Zoom. If you cannot make fake eye contact, because let's agree, we're all talking to the green light. But if you can't make real fake eye contact on Zoom, you are not doing real collaboration, because that ability to see somebody else's eyes actually changes our brain in a way that makes us smarter, more empathetic, and more open to what they are saying. There are 50 people on this Zoom call right now. I'm going to guess that 13 of them are doing something else. And that's the nature of Zoom. It's easy to do it, especially where you have large groups. And so great to have large groups, but where you need meaningful conversations, I will tell you 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 is sort of an upper limit, is about the greatest number of people that can have a true meaningful conversation on Zoom. I would also tell you that as you are reconsidering your workplace, we have never had a better opportunity to scrub our meetings. Every once in a while, smart CEOs scrub their organizational design and say, if we're going to white paper the organization, what roles do we want? This is a fantastic time to look at your organization and to take all your meetings off the books and start to put them back on with the right people, the right frequency, and the right length. You'd be amazed at how many of those meetings can be shrunk to a shorter time period, operated at a lesser frequency, and give people back time to do real valuable work. And so the third one, and I will tell you right this moment, for me, this is probably the most important one because of what is going on in the world, and that is stay close to your rock stars. Rock stars, and this is a shout out and a thank you to Clint Smith, really gave me the best working definition of a rock star I've ever heard, which is a rock star is somebody who makes the work around them better just because they show up. They're so dedicated and good at what they do that they improve performance just by being. These are the most influential people in your company. And because of COVID, because of remote, because of a lot of things, I will tell you that we are at an all-time high of employees who are rethinking their career paths. So more than half of your workforce right now, statistically, is considering whether or not they're in the right place. Here's an interesting number to add to that. 80% of companies are planning to grow in the next year. Well, if half of your people are rethinking where they are and if it's the right thing for them, and 4 out of 5 companies are looking for talent, I'm here to promise you they are coming after your rock stars. And so it is always the CEO's prerogative to spend time with the highest level employees in their company. It doesn't matter if this is the new junior account manager or the new receptionist or the most senior VP. As a CEO, a privilege is to be able to spend time with whomever you want. Staying close to your rock stars is one of the most important things that you can do, giving them a little bit of a peek behind the curtain and asking them what they need right now is a game changer because they go out and work at scale and bring that to the rest of your team. You put these all together, and what I would tell you is, more than anything else right now, there's an interesting thing about understanding how we share hardship and where happiness comes from. Happiness is not about making the work better. Happiness is not about making the work even more productive. For your team right now, if you want them to stay engaged and to stay with you, especially in a remote environment, part of your ongoing work as a CEO is to make sure that you are giving that work meaning. And I'm out.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary. Way to be efficient. I love the thought around, are we going to be okay? It's kind of interesting to hear, thinking about that and thinking about how they think about, are we going to be okay? Like, I have an interesting scenario with my staff where they're like, well, we make X million dollars, and then I divide that number by 26 and there should be plenty of money. And it's like, and that's why I'm in this seat and you're in that seat. Question from the chat. Mary, what if you feel they are not worrying about whether they are doing enough? From David Ross. What do you do if you feel like they're not worrying about whether they're doing enough?
So that goes back to this idea of really stressing outcomes and really working on outcomes instead of activity. There's an interesting little experiment in behavioral economics in which if you put a bowl of candy out randomly, people will take handfuls of it. If you put just a picture up of somebody who says in a thought bubble above that candy, hey, would you just please take one? It significantly changes the outcomes and people will do it. One of the big challenges with working remote, actually it's a two-parter. You have a lot of distractions. It's just as easy to look at your closet that you could go organize right now or go get a glass of wine as it is to hunker down and do the work. And so where that work doesn't have a specific outcome that can be valued, it becomes much more difficult to assign meaning to it. And so meaning in general has come under attack in COVID because we've lost the sense of why am I doing a lot of things, because we've lost them. And so the more that we can help our employees to understand why it matters that you actually show up at a certain level, the more likely they are to do it.
Awesome, thank you. So Alex, I've got a question for you. Whenever you talk about the COVID buddies, did you have seed or prompts for those conversations, or how did you kind of structure that a little bit more in detail? You're muted.
There was no structure. We just required people to get together for at least 30 minutes. And I mean, like a couple people on our, that are on my team referred to these calls as stranger calls. Like they were being forced to go spend 30 minutes with a stranger. But overall, I mean, more than one person has said that even when we're back in the office, I hope we keep them to somehow, but they figured out a way to talk.
Great. Bethany, I know you have a lot of very traditional clients that have to meet in person, and that's the only way they work. So how did you bridge that gap with those traditional clients?
Yeah, that's interesting because that's actually just started to open up more. So a fair amount of our clients aren't local, so they were already used to doing conference calls or Zooms with us. So we've just been upping our Zoom gate and like in that regard and getting better at that. But there definitely are some local ones that are now wanting to meet in person. And I feel like we're not on that side of me requiring employees to do it that don't feel safe because of where the city's at. So what we've been doing is people that do feel safe go in for those meetings and the other people are on the Zoom, and we're doing it all in the conference room spaced out. And they're, and we've got them on video from home. And, usually one of the principals, me or Josh is there, people can feel safe, but it's going to come time. I feel like when Nashville is at the phase that feels like, okay, there's no excuse, like you need to be here for this meeting. And I think that's going to happen late spring, but I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. It's interesting because most of my staff is young and not really of any of the high risk groups, and they're not going to be allowed to get a vaccine until much further out. And they are all super pro vaccine. So we're just going to have to see them start to show up more. But we had a local photo shoot where we did the extra COVID policies, and 4 people from my team went. They had to have a negative test, and you wait for 45 minutes before you go in, and they all felt okay about that. So,
got it. So, question from Elizabeth for the panel. who is the team member responsible for organizing the social activities? And I'll speak to this one because we have, we've done a lot of work on company happy hour. And so our kind of social leader of the company is the front desk. And she really leads all the, she leads the energy in the office. So she would jump out and scare people, and we'd record that and have fainting goat competitions and stuff like that. But so we've added, you know, bingo nights with prizes. We've added also quiz night through Kahoot. So that's one option. Mary, what have you seen out there? Edith?
Pretty much the same thing, where it's super valuable to get somebody who has some natural energy around this to take care of it. This is an example, though, of also be mindful of your outcomes, because some people that take on the whole idea of morale or whatever, they can get to some very weird places. So I have found this works best where it's a particular person. I have found this works really well where you put it with two people as a team as well as one person, because there's a bounce. And also there is the possibility of rotating that team so that two people take it or one person takes it for 3 to 6 months, and then they know they don't have it forever. And that way you get a novel perspective that can offer different things. This is one of the things that is super valuable that you can give to them, that they feel like they're doing something that is super helpful. They can see the impact, and that really does help with mood.
Awesome. Alex, how about from your perspective?
It's an HR responsibility.
So just adding on to kind of that HR function within the business, not necessarily a social leader, but just part of the like kind of human resource effort. Got it. Bethany?
So ours was our front desk person, like you, but actually that's one of the first that I put on furlough, because there's so much of her job was about hosting people in the space. And then thankfully, you know, she wasn't on furlough long then she took a completely different job in a different industry, which I was glad for her, because even as I brought everybody else back on, there was no reason to bring her back on. So then with the social stuff, now it's just sort of leading on, like a few of us that are more socially minded kind of get together on Slack and come up with things.
Awesome. And so there are, let's see, interesting kind of thought process from Chris Corby. So Chris, you want to come off mute and just kind of talk about this for just a minute and a half?
I worked so hard at writing that succinctly as I could, but I will. So we have 140-ish employees, and maybe 10 of them are management working out of the office. Everybody else is sort of like labor out there performing the work at client sites. And we've been very effective working remotely from the office, but our labor force cannot do that. They have to be present and to bill their hours. And I'm just afraid that as effective as we can be remotely, and as much as we're all doing well, I don't want to create more of a culture of management versus labor, and get this sense that it's us versus them. And so I just feel like, I think the answer to me is obvious. We need to get back in the office and be present to people and have them seeing us showing up for work too. I don't see an alternative to that. Just thoughts on that?
Yeah, Mary, I'm sure you've got some clients that are in that boat.
Absolutely. And to Chris and to everybody else, I would say, again, when I said 100% of my people are not going back, they're not going back 100%. And so to Chris and everybody else, this is a fantastic opportunity to say, I can intentionally design when and where I want my team together and where I want to have them working not in a physical place. And so Chris, for you, that manager position might be one where they need to be there. This is what Alex is finding, that his team actually needs to be there because of who the team is and because of the nature of the work. He wants them there Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 or whatever. For you, you can actually sit back and just say, is there a rhythm where my management does need to be here because it's the easiest way for the team out in the field to find them? Or there's an opportunity to go to I have 2 clients that have gone to, even as they've come back to work, people work from home 1 day a week with very specific direction about what they're doing. That's their deep work. That's their time to make progress on hard problems. But not every member of that team is in the office 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, or whatever that is. This is a really good time maybe to talk to leadership about what is the optimal situation for us. And I would also share with you guys that one thing that has come out of COVID and remote that's been incredibly valuable for some companies is a 4 or 4.5 day work week, where they are finding that not only is productivity not going down, it's actually going up because people are very motivated to keep that extra day for themselves. So the point of this, and I'm happy to talk to anybody, share experience from a lot of people with this. The nice part about this is you've never had a better time to say, what do I want? And what do I believe about what will work for the team?
Awesome. So to close out our Q&A, we've got John Rowley, tech tips on how to use Zoom or a feature of a platform that really helps virtual. Thoughts on going virtual company. So let's kind of close out on that. Any special kind of one thing that you've done that's been well received, Bethany?
So for whiteboarding, we use Dropbox white paper. It's a really easy way for people in different locations to whiteboard on the screen together while they do it.
Awesome. Alex?
We've gotten good at people recording their Zoom sessions so that managers can review and give feedback.
Gotcha. I'm gonna throw in one more here. So storytostage.co. It's a EO member, Rich Mulholland in South Africa, really pivoted his business to drive virtual presentations, virtual meetups, and I was just really impressed by what they've done there. So storytostage.co. And Mary, close us out on our Q&A. Super tip on
this, be more prepared. Spend more time preparing, knowing what you want to get accomplished. You have much better Zoom meetings if you've got a super clear agenda with super specific outcomes.
Awesome. Mary, I think you had like a little bit of breakout work for.
Yeah, we're actually just going into the big breakouts.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So jumping over to the big breakout. So best thing you heard someone do, however you tried it and it didn't work. Are you going to continue remote, or is your culture not conducive to that? And one tip that you can share with the entire group that you feel like was a big win. I really love that question about how do you make this not suck? And I think we found one, which is these breakout rooms that we're going to do right now.